Another season of Legacy Leagues is underway in Rhode Island, our 8th season. A lot of things remain the same, as in Lob City dominating wins, my team losing. No, I'm kidding. But we are here with some new interns to break down the week 1 action from Tuesday night. I'm Joey, and I'm here with Owen, Ian, and Nick. We're going to get to all the action, all 4 games from Tuesday night in Rhode Island. We're going to preview a little bit of week 2 and even see what these guys thought, seeing their first night of Legacy Leagues action. Guys, we're going to get to the defending champs in a second. We have a couple new teams, but it actually is 2 returning teams that we're going to start on first. And it's the closest game of the night, the Halfway Crooks and the Rhode Island Warriors. Anyone who thought we were biased here, starting with my game, I swear it's only because it was the closest margin, a 3-point game from week 1. Before we get to that and all the games, thanks to our sponsor, Chelo's this season, who's doing some stuff with our All-Star Night. They're going to be giving some gift cards to some of our contest winners, so stay tuned for that. And they're also sponsoring our Low Post podcast. So we're going to be doing a ton of stuff again with PJ hosting from the Duje's boys. We'll get to his game and his team winning in week 1 in a second. And we're also going to be doing some live games. So I'll get to that in a second. We're going to be broadcasting games live throughout the season on YouTube, so you could follow us there. But like I talked about, the Halfway Crooks do fall to the Rhode Island Warriors. And it's a new look Rhode Island Warriors team from last season. And I'll kind of give some context first. But Rhode Island Warriors finished 6-2 last season in the regular season after starting 0-2, and they were led by MVP Gian Avedijian, who's now on the Game Breakers. So we're going to get to kind of some of the former Rhode Island Warriors players who are now on the Game Breakers, if you're following along. But it was Henry Concalves and Eric Bowers who's back, and then some new faces that really took over for the Rhode Island Warriors and took down the Halfway Crooks 63-60. We'll get to the stats in a second, but guys, I mean, your first time seeing a lot of the games like I talked about. So we'll go in order on my screen. We'll get to, we'll go Owen first. We'll put him on the spot, his first appearance on the postgame show. But let's kind of start in the 4th quarter there. I mean, a pretty close game. I don't think the lead for either team ever got more than, definitely not more than 9 or 10. And I don't think more than even like 5 or 6. It was pretty close throughout. And then it was the Rhode Island Warriors who were able to make a 3 and get a dunk down the stretch. And then they hit some free throws, which is always a question mark in this league with some new players who are staring at an 8.5-foot rim from the free throw line. If you're ever on the court, do that. It's a little trippy to stare at. And so credit to them for making their free throws. But Owen, as far as that 4th quarter and really those final 2 minutes, what stood out to you and how the Rhode Island Warriors were able to, pull away and hold on for the win?
Hi, everyone. Well, this is my first time on, but I thought that game was close all throughout. Like you said, I don't think either team was leading by double figures at any point. But those last 2 minutes, it came down to execution. And if you look at the box score, the Warriors only had 4 turnovers as a team, whereas the Crooks had 10. And I think in such a close game where all the stats are similar, turnovers could play a huge role in those final 2 minutes. And then it just came down to execution. I think the Warriors were able to find their shots and get open and hit their free throws, even though it's 8.5 feet. It's still crucial to hit them, and they were able to do that and get a win.
Yeah, and just to summarize kind of those final 2 minutes, and then we'll go to Ian next, but Charles Alexander, 23 points on the night, and I mean, 4 3-pointers. He made as many threes by himself as the entire Halfway Crooks team. So that's one way to overcome a lot of things, right? I mean, first time playing in the league for him. He was very happy in his post-game interview, but he had a huge 3 to give the Warriors a 3-point lead in a tied game with 2 to go. Jared Hansen comes down and gets a layup. Yeah, you think I've been watching the highlights, right? Jared Hansen comes down and gets a layup for the Crooks to cut it to 1. And then it's Marvin Dowdell, another new player who finished with 21, goes right by and gets inside for a dunk to push that lead back to 3. And from there, the Crooks are really never able to, they are not able to take a lead from that point on. And it ends a 3-point game for the Warriors. But Ian, I mean, let's go kind of 4th quarter, big picture, and then we'll go over to Nick. But, we'll look at the Halfway Crooks here in a second. Not that you have to talk about them, but from that 4th quarter, a lot of back and forth. But what stands out to you, Ian?
Yeah, like you said, a lot of back and forth, but coming down to the wire, there was a lot of fouls, and that really made the game for the Warriors. They hit all their free throws late in the game. And Dowdle, number 13, despite not having a great shooting night, he did become a vocal leader on that floor, really got his team together, and it did make a difference. So they came out on top despite those fouls they had. A few of the players on both teams got in foul trouble, but they made those free throws in the clutch, which always matters.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking, I mean, we'll go back up to the Rhode Island Warriors in a second, but it was Charles Alexander who had 5 fouls and actually exited the game for the middle part of that fourth quarter, just trying to preserve him for the end. And it worked out. Like I said, he hit that huge 3 that would give the Warriors the lead for good. Nick, I'm going to go back up to the Warriors here, because I mean, we can talk about, Dominique Langston, Devon Pino, who's a lot of these, everybody on the Halfway Crooks has played in the legacy leagues before. But, as far as some of the new players for the Warriors, what'd you see throughout the entire game, from either team really that stood out, Nick?
I think the biggest thing that stood out from the Warriors is kind of how I would say is the two-headed snake that came from them, between Marvin Dowdell and Charles Alexander. Like we said, the fouls, there were a lot of them, and just as a viewer watching, I thought it would be a much bigger issue for the Warriors, especially Charles Alexander would have to come out multiple times throughout the game, and you would think that that's when they would kind of lose it, fall apart. But Marvin Dowdell was able to step up big time, and the two of them in the game at the same time seemed unstoppable. So that's, I would say, my biggest takeaway from this game, especially from the Warriors as a team.
Yeah, and so now the Halfway Crooks fall to 0-1, and the Rhode Island Warriors remain undefeated. And I know it's 1 week, but a win's a win, man. I say it all the time. I would know from the amount of games that I've been a part of, but never easy to win. And close games like that are always good to kind of get under your belt early, so I can start the I'd hate to play the Halfway Crooks in the playoffs chant that I end up having on the postgame show in weeks 6, 7, and 8. So we'll get there. I still like the Halfway Crooks and some of the new pieces they've added. But let's move on to the Duje's boys, who are another returning team. They are back and they improved to 1-0, but the theme here is going to be new faces and new teams. And while the Duje's boys are a returning team, they do, the scoreboard reflects them doing a lot of the same things they've done in the past, winning, by 21 there, but it was some new faces for them as well. So no, Johnny Kutu back, no Vinny Volpe back, no Zach Tartaglia back. And we'll give them a shout out here, who have been staples with that Duje's boys team over the past 2-3 years, at least, if not more. And week 1, the Duje's boys were led by Lucas Panakia's 42. So you would think he was calling for his inner, Johnny Kutu or Vinny Volpe with that stat line. I mean, he looked like he's been playing in the league for a while, even though it was his first game. And again, another, awesome interview from him, and the Duje's boys cheering on the bench as they do, going nuts. It was a great way to kick off the night. But they take down the Air Mambas, a new team in the league, like I said, by 21. And I know you guys were all there for this one. We'll go Ian first on this one, so I'll put him on the spot. But just what in general, in addition to what Lucas did, what stands out to you, from the Duje's boys and your first time seeing them?
Yeah, no, they were great to watch. What I really like about them is I think they got a really well-rounded team. Each player contributes in a different way. They got 2 solid big men, and obviously with Lucas, you got a scorer firsthand, and also with those 6 assists, he can dish it out to his teammates. They also got some sharpshooters from 3, so they definitely got a well-balanced team to make it happen offensively and also guard whatever team they have to face defensively. So I really like what I saw from them.
Yeah, and they are missing, I know, Corey Bardsley. Let's give him a shout out. We're going to fix the stats when we get a chance, but he had 20 points as well. So there's the missing, piece there for the Duje's boys. And he's also a new face. So between Corey Bardsley, Lucas Panakia combined for 62 for the Duje's boys in their week 1 win. Kyle Wolf, Nate Kirschenbaum, some returning faces, but are probably going to have bigger roles this year compared to last year. And they should see a return for Brian Yarcy, who kind of rounded out one of their best 4-man lineups from last year with some of the guys I talked about for the Duje's boys. Oh, and let's get to the Air Mambas. And I know they lost, and I know it wasn't necessarily, the closest game for them, but even just by the stats here really quick, I mean, down 13 at halftime. So it wasn't like they got blown out right away. You could see they're a big third quarter in favor of the Duje's boys, kind of was the difference. So let's go there. Oh, and what out of halftime changed where we kind of realized at that point, yeah, it's going to be the Duje's boys night. What changed out of halftime for the Air Mambas?
I think, honestly, I don't think much changed at halftime. I think what had happened was the Mambas and the Duje boys are both shooting a lot of threes, and you live and you die by the 3. and the Mambas only shot 14% as a team. They just couldn't get them to fall. And I think that was throughout the game. And I think the Duje boys just got hot from beyond the arc in the third and then the fourth quarter. But as far as the Mambas, I don't think they're a bad team. They're great. You just live and die by the three. They just happen to die by it in week one.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
as
when
far
there's a
as the
lot of
Duje boys, they shot great. Shot like 40% from the field, 37 from three. And shooting like that when someone else is cold is a recipe for success.
exactly, yeah. Great point. And yeah, newer teams like that. So we talked about the Rhode Island Warriors having some new players, and it felt like they made all their shots. And again, credit to them. The Air Mambas in a similar position go 4 for 27 from three. And if they, of course, we can do the math game, right? If they had made 6 more, and we're 10 for 27, they're in the game in theory, right? Just by adding those points. So you can do that with any team, but when you are shooting that much, of course, like you said, it helps. Nick, even just big picture from this game, I mean, a fun way to kick off week one, and kind of what stood out to you from either team here as the Duje's boys get that first win on the season.
I think the play aside, I think just as an entertainment factor, as an entertainment aspect, a lot of talking, and it made a lot of entertainment. It was a great way to show what the league was all about. It was a great opener. You could see that Duje's boys had been here before. This is not their first rodeo, and they came out talking, and they definitely stood by it.
Yeah, you guys are picking up on that quick, huh? Yeah, there you go. Exactly right when it comes to the Duje's boys. And yeah, I mean, if you can't get enough of the Duje's boys, for those of you who aren't sick of them yet, like I talked about, our Low Post podcast hosted by PJ Thomas, and openly biased over there. We try to keep it, nice and down the middle here, but they do a really good job breaking down the games and setting spreads. And so stay tuned for that podcast as well throughout the week, as well as some other ones we might have throughout the season. But Duje's boys on track, take care of the Air Mambas. And, they were, I want to get this right, last year in our playoffs, they were the top overall seed. And so they did get upset in overtime in the semifinals. And again, a different team, but they were the top overall seed, with Lob City being the 2 seed. And, a lot of talk about those two teams meeting, and they did not last year. So we will see them in the regular season this year down the road. And we'll get to the defending champs, Lob City, in a second. But next, let's get to 2 new teams. But like I talked about, the Game Breakers are full of players who have played in the league before, but it is the Game Breakers able to take care of the Ice Treys by 15. And it really, I mean, I didn't see too much of this game. I know you guys were busy as well, but from what it looks like in this game, the fourth quarter kind of allowed the Game Breakers to pull away and kind of get a little comfortable, but it was a close game throughout. And, led by Gian Avedigian again, and I'll kind of put up the stats in a second. And, if any of you guys want to even just look at the box score and kind of give us some analysis on the Game Breakers, because they are, I think, one of those teams that we'll keep an eye on throughout the season, just from some of their talent and some of, the players that have played in the league before. I mean, a former MVP in Gian Avedigian. I was trying to do, how many all-stars this team has. At least 2, I believe 3. And that's not even counting Hachi Amini, who was in the 3-point contest, and I believe in the finals of the 3-point contest last year. So he's always able to shoot it well and kind of fills in around Gian and Charles Correa, and they added David DePina. And so, yeah, I mean, this team, sloppy at times, and I think they would even admit that. And even Gian in his post-game interview after the game for the Game Breakers, I mean, really just, talking about focus for his team and what they want to accomplish is much more than a win in the regular season, and they know they have to play better. But I'll put up the box score here in a second. Ian, yeah, we'll put you on the spot. Even just looking at the box score, I know that you haven't seen these teams, and so I'll kind of fill in some of the blanks. But even just looking at the box score, Ian, a close game, and we'll have to keep an eye on the Ice Treys and kind of see where they're going to rank this season. But I'd expect the Game Breakers to be in the top 4, and even just kind of looking at the stats, what stands out when you look at the box score there.
Yeah, when looking at the box score for the Game Breakers, when you have 5 players scoring over double digits and all of them shot above 40%, that's something that's going to go a long way. As a few players might not be having their best game, having some depth on a roster is definitely going to go a long way. So I like to see that.
Yeah, and I mean, even 50% shooting there for the Game Breakers from the floor, and the turnovers. It says 11. And then you see Ice Treys there, if we scroll up a little bit, had 16 turnovers. So as sloppy as the game breakers claim they were playing, and there were moments where they were not as focused as they would admit they needed to be. They were still able to get the win. And you see, again, only 3 for 11 from 3 for the Ice Treys. And Justin Titsworth, who is one of those returning players who did play last season on a different team, made 3 of them. So he made all the threes for his team. They have one guy doing that. And that can be kind of a way the Ice Treys overcome, some of that disparity. And we'll get to more on this game in a second. Let's get to the champs. Then we're kind of going to do some bigger picture stuff through week 1. But the defending champs, I think everyone's going to nod their head, looked like the defending champs in week 1. And Ball Don't Lie took a season off. And some of those players have played before, but Lob City, all 9 guys are back. We talked to Colin Burns after the game about that, and we'll get that box score up in a second. But Lob City wins by 63 in week 1, and that's what they were able to do over the past many seasons in the legacy leagues, no matter who's been on their team. But talk about balance, and I know field goal percentage stands out. We'll go to Nick first on this one, even just on Lob City. Your first time seeing them, so I mean, I kind of knew what to expect here, but what did you see in this one from the champs? And yeah, I'm sure there's a lot to talk about, and we'll talk about them a lot throughout the season, and we'll see if they can be challenged. But what stood out to you, Nick?
I mean, just how fast paced they are. They started the game, the tip off started, they tipped it, and within 2 seconds they were dunking the ball. I think they started the game 16-0, I want to say. And what stood out to me watching them compared to all the other teams is how few threes and how few shots they actually take. It's every possession seems to be the same. They go on defense, they swarm whoever has the ball, they get a steal or a block, and before you blink, they're dunking the ball. It was a highlight after a highlight after a highlight. Definitely my top team, one of the most fun teams to watch. And I'm excited to see what more they bring. Yeah.
And we'll go to Owen here in a second, but Lob City, yeah, they, between Cody Crawford and Jose Mercado and Justin Tavis, like they will shoot some threes. So they also kind of have that in their back pocket. But when they see how a game is going, as it did in week 1, and they were bigger, I think it's fair to say, just kind of at every position. And so they really took advantage of that from the jump, like you said, pulling out early, getting up double digits before anyone could even realize what was going on, and then really never looked back. Owen, you can go wherever you'd like on this one. I do want to get to Ball Don't Lie a little bit, but what stood out even from the champs first, and then from Ball Don't Lie and overall in this one.
Yeah, when you look at the trophy at center court, Lob City's name is all over it for a good reason. This team is just incredible. They had 7 players in double figures, and they're all just so great. And I want to give a shout out to Nuri, who had a triple double with 7 steals, which is incredible. And then also Cody Crawford had 9 assists and 9 rebounds, just one of each shy away of a triple double. But the thing about Ball Don't Lie, I think they were shell shocked right at the beginning. But if you look at the box score by the third quarter, they started to figure it out. But this team is just Lob City is just so much better and so much more experienced in this type of league with an 8.5-foot rim. But I think in the third, they started to figure out. But at that point, when you're down so much, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, and we'll let Ian get in a second, and we can try to even touch on Ball Don't Lie a little more. But yeah, I mean, you see 30-8 there in the first quarter, and so you're down, 22 in the first 10 minutes, and then yeah, we'll see how things go for them, moving forward, and I'm sure they'll have they will have some closer games against some different teams. Lob City does this to multiple opponents, so it's not out of the ordinary for teams to look discombobulated in that sense. But Ian, your first time seeing both these teams, what'd you see? What stood out for you?
Yeah, Lob City really came out strong. They asserted their dominance, and yeah, they're definitely going to be a fun team to watch. I'll be waiting to see them play the Duje's boys, and like Colin Burns said in his postgame interview, they're not letting up. They're coming out strong, and they're not messing around. They know what they're here for, so they're going to try and win another championship. So they made that very clear in their first game back.
Yeah, and you're doing a little piece on them this week, little article, so everyone could stay tuned for that. And we're also going to be featuring the one of the players on the game breakers as well, which we talked about a little bit earlier. So 4 games from week 1, we touched on all of those. Not too much to really look at in the standings because either you won or you lost. So we'll do more of that next week, but we will have power rankings coming out sometime this week. And again, I'll get it on record now, but I'll also send it out. And when I see people in person, the power rankings are different from the standings, right? Even if a team may be lost in week 1, they may be ahead of a team that won in week 1 because that's power rankings are not the standings. And I end up saying that a couple times throughout the year, but it's always fun to kind of get some opinion in there as far as where teams rank despite their record and, how they're playing. And it'll be interesting for you guys, especially to kind of see throughout the year, some of these teams, how they looked week 1. You'd be like, oh my God, I cannot believe, a team looked like this in week 1. And now in week 6, they look completely different when they play. Let's shout out the Rhode Island Warriors from last year again, right? Started 0-2 and lost to Lob City in week 1. And I believe the Duje's boys in week 2. So they played 2 of the best teams, were 0-2 and ran the table to the semifinals. They won 6, 7, 8 in a row, I believe, to get to the semifinals and lost to Lob City in what was they kept it close and what was just a great game against Lob City. So that's kind of how quickly things can shift. But let's kind of look big picture really quick. I mean, 8 teams, and we talked a lot about the teams that won. So I'll put you on the spot. Let's go first. I'll do 2 little questions here before we get out of here. But what team that lost this week, okay, are you most interested to watch next week? And I'll get the schedule ready for next week. If we go on the schedule page, you can pick week 2 and kind of Lob City takes on the game breakers. We actually have our rivalry week next week, and that's a tongue twister to say, but the teams that play in week 2 will play again, I believe, in week 7. So we'll get to see these matchups twice. But in week 2, we do have Lob City game breakers. So that'll be a good one. Halfway Crooks, Duje's boys, some of the returning teams and players facing off there. Ice Treys and Air Mambas, Ball Don't Lie, and the Rhode Island Warriors. So we'll just go in order again. We'll go Owen first. It's all right. Put them back on the spot. Which team that lost for you are you most interested in watching in week 2?
I think Ball Don't Lie would be the game I'll definitely keep an eye on, the 9:00 one. They're playing the Rhode Island Warriors, and the Rhode Island Warriors just snuck away with a win. And I think they got it through experience and keep and handle the ball. But they play such a different style from Lob City that I think Ball Don't Lie will definitely be able to compete a lot more. And I think that game will be very interesting. And it's 9:00, so everybody will be there to watch it.
Exactly right. All right, we're going to skip around Nick. So a different losing team. If you have a different one, I'll make you pick not Ball Don't Lie. So that leaves you 3 options. So what other losing team do you want to see next week and how they do?
I would definitely say Halfway Crooks is definitely on my radar. I honestly, just watching the game this past week, I thought they were gonna pull out with a win. I thought they're one of the better looking teams, especially of the teams that lost. So I have a lot of hope for them, and I'm excited to see what they can bring.
All right, Nick gets the first brownie point of the year. They mean nothing and the points don't matter, but that's how you suck up. Very nice job. All right. No, yeah, I mean the halfway, this is what we do, right? We hopefully peak at the right time and have some new players in there for us. So that's kind of part of that players that have played in the league just playing together. And I think that showed, and we didn't hit any shots. So that doesn't usually go well. Ian, all right, because you're last, you can pick any team that's not Lob City because they won by 63. We will talk enough about Lob City. I promise. They have an article coming. They're good. They're good. So you can pick any team that we didn't talk about that isn't named Lob City that you're most excited to see next week.
All right. This team also lost, but I'm looking forward to seeing the Air Mambas play next week and throughout the season. I think as they get to know one another, build some chemistry, they definitely have some potential. And the game was entertaining. Like Nick said, they definitely had some trash talk going on, but I feel like they definitely have some potential. So I'll be looking forward to see what they bring to the table.
Perfect. All right. 3 teams. I like it. That bodes well for the season, especially if we get some, teams that lost and they're able to get a win next week. That's what we like to see. That's great. All right. Last thing, and then we'll sign off. And very good job so far this week, guys. Let's do this. I'll put you on the spot with a player. So it can be any player, any team you want that stood out to you and that you again kind of can't wait to see in week 2 and even throughout the rest of the season, on if they're able to keep up some of the things they did in week 1 throughout the season. So Nick may or may not look ready, who knows, but we'll go to Nick. So what player are you excited to kind of see for the rest of the season?
So I guess I got 2 parts for this. I would say when you first asked, I originally first thought that came to my head was Gian, mainly because I haven't seen him and I want to see what all this talk is about. I want to see what a former MVP looks like. But strictly from teams that I have seen, I'm excited to see. I know you don't want to talk about him again, but Colin Burns definitely is a walking highlight reel. And so just coming strictly as a fan, I want to see more of it. So I want to naturally am excited to watch again and see what he brings.
And on that point, no, it's totally okay. Colin Burns, I saw him a month or 2 before the season, and he's played before in many seasons. I don't even remember exactly how many. And so he was like, I'm getting ready. And he was talking, 2 months before the season, I'm coming for the MVP. He is not shy about any of that stuff. And also winning it all, obviously, that really is that team's number 1 priority, in addition to getting their stats. And Colin, loves doing what he does and puts up awesome numbers. So all right, Ian won't be last this time. So what player from any team are you excited to watch?
I'm excited to watch number 13, Marvin Dowdle, going forward for the RI Warriors. I think really has good knowledge and IQ of the game, and he's very ball dominant and making his teammates better. And he only shot 7 of 27 and had 21 points. So once you get those percentages up and going forward, I think he'll be a real big factor for the team and definitely one of the best players to look out for in the league. So putting my money on him going forward.
Yeah, it didn't seem like he was 7 for 27. Let's put it that way, because he made a lot of shots, which were huge for his team, especially when they needed, a bucket. But from 3, attacking the basket, was getting fouled and drawing fouls on the Halfway Crooks. So kind of did it all for that team and is definitely, a player to watch. Owen, go right ahead.
He fell right into my lap. The guy who's dropped 42, Lucas Pacena. He shot incredibly efficiently all night long, had 42, shot 50 from the 3, 54 from the field. And he had those 6 assists, like Ian mentioned. He's more than just a scorer, but going after week 1, being the leading scorer, you can't help but have eyes on you.
Yeah, and so Nick's the only one. You guys could have said me. What the hell is that? All right, that's fine. Nobody wants to watch me. That's all right. That's great. Good job, guys. You missed a golden opportunity there. But really, really good players. And one from the Duje's boys who really knows what to expect with them and some new players. And we have Lob City and even the Gian call's a great one. You guys will be able to watch that one next week. That's for sure. As they take on Lob City, like we talked about, which will be the game of the week, even though I'm sure it's a 1-0 and an 0 and no, they both won. Perfect. Yep. Nice and easy game of the week. And they play twice, which is going to be great for the season. So if you guys can't make it to the games, and this goes for no one on the show because we'll all be there, but we are going to be streaming games live on our YouTube. So make sure to follow us there and check that out. That's where all of our video goes. That's where this post-game show goes. YouTube.com/legacy_leagues. We'll link it on our Facebook and Instagram as well. But that's new this season, in addition to our Snapchat highlights and, posting different content throughout the week on Facebook and Instagram. We're going to be streaming live on YouTube, so you guys can rewatch or watch the games as they happen. But Owen, Ian, and Nick, good job, guys. 1 post-game show down, couple more to go this year, I'm sure. And we'll see everyone for week 2 at the Rec Center again with our rivalry week, with some teams that know each other and some players that know each other facing off on the court. Thanks, guys. See you in week 2.